Just when you thought it was over, we started it over. Just a different chapter, but still part of the story. Spirit of a patriot, but the heart of a soldier. If you wasn't part of the grind, you can't be part of the glory. We right here, we ain't going nowhere. It's your worst nightmare. We back and they all scared. Every year is our year. The defense is top tier. Whenever you see that red and blue, it's a new era. They too scared of us. I don't know who said it was over, but they lied. The truth never miss, kicking down the door like who let him in. We been grinding and we ain't worried about the small talk. We big timers.
Yeah, can't believe it, we ain't leaving. Yeah, we achieving, can't be beaten. Say it loud, say it proud from the top of my lungs. Hometown, second crown, you ain't trying with us. Around this side, you really can't deny. You can't run, you can't hide when the Patriot comes.
All right, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Friday Night Lights podcast. We are here with the Pats Nation Nightly podcast. This is exciting, right? We just had the Senior Bowl, so we kind of want to get everyone on the same time. So thanks for you guys joining us.
For sure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is
so-
awesome.
yeah.
Zach and I were just at Mobile last week, as you mentioned, and I'm just really excited to kind of go over all of our thoughts. I know Zach and I both have a few notes, a few players who stood out, and it was definitely different than previous years getting ready for this draft because the Patriots have their quarterback in Drake May. Now they just have to build around him.
Yeah, I'll kind of let you guys start where you guys were there. Who stood out to you the most? Who's like the most intriguing that you guys saw? We kind of start off.
I got it. All right.
Yeah.
So I was watching more so the receivers and cornerbacks when I was down there in Mobile, and a few guys that stood out on the offensive side of the ball. Jack Besh, I think we all kind of know what happened there for him that week. Incredible week at practice, and then the game topping it all off with a game-winning touchdown on the last play. Incredible moment. Again, incredible week from him. He was looking pretty much unguardable. On that same note, Tez Johnson, a guy who I didn't really expect to be all that, especially down in Mobile. I kind of thought, he's 5'8", 5'9", 156 pounds. The dude's a twig. He's fast, but I expected the defenders to just kind of be able to get a hand on him, press him, and have the plays ending right where they started. That is not what happened. That's the exact opposite of what happened. Tez may have been the best receiver there that week. May have had it's close. There are a lot of guys at that receiver position who performed very well. Don't get me wrong, but Tez Johnson had himself a heck of a week. Proved myself wrong and proved a lot of other doubters wrong, because at 156 pounds, there's the expectations are pretty low. He defied all odds for me. And lastly, Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. He moves so well. He catches pretty much everything. I mean, that's a guy that you can't really go wrong with. And Iowa State has a couple of very good receivers in this draft. Noel may not even be the best one. Jaden Higgins also had a very good week in Mobile. He's more of an outside X type of guy. I think he's 6'3"-ish, whereas Noel is about like 5'10", 5'11", and plays more in the slot. Two very good receivers there who had very solid weeks.
Yeah, Zach mentioned the receivers, and I'll just go to the other side of the ball, to the defensive side, and talk about the defensive linemen in particular. There is a surplus of fantastic defensive linemen, not just at the Senior Bowl, but in general in this draft. And last week in Mobile, it showed. We had LSU's Savion Jones, who impressed me. 6'5", 289, kind of edge, more of a defensive on the defensive but he looked really good. Pressured quarterbacks Jackson Dart and Dylan Gabriel in the week. And then we also have Arkansas's Landon Jackson, another SEC defensive player who had a tough week. Not tough week, a tough first day at practice, and then he kind of transitioned into a really, really good player by the game. By the game on Saturday. And then one other player I will mention on the defensive side of the ball is Central Arkansas's David Walker. And what I'm looking for these smaller schools in the Senior Bowl is, can they produce against tougher talent, these Big Ten and SEC Power 5 schools, some of these FCS schools? That's the one big question that scouts are asking is, can this person produce against someone and be physical against someone who has played at the Alabamas or the Floridas or the Tennessees? And Central Arkansas's David Walker is definitely someone who showed out. He had 39 sacks in 45 games in his college career, and he had a couple sacks on Saturday in the game. And he is someone who, in the middle of the rounds, kind of boosted his draft stock, maybe from a 6th, 7th rounder all the way to, I would say, a 4th, 5th rounder.
Okay, yeah. One that kind of stood out to me, and I kind of wanted your opinion because, right, social media kind of focuses on, the big plays. Mike Green, right? Obviously, there's the video of him, bulldozing over that offensive lineman. I kind of wanted to get a little bit more in depth on what you actually saw, just besides that one play. I know he kind of stopped his showcase kind of after that, but I kind of wanted to see if there was something else that stood out to you.
Yeah, that one play obviously was the highlight of the week.
Yeah.
We've seen it so many times, but there's a reason why he left after day 2. He didn't just have that one play. It was a masterclass all week for Mike Green. And it also wasn't even just the practices. It wasn't what he showed on the field. I believe before this week, and I may have the numbers slightly off, but I believe he was listed at around 215 to 225 pounds, somewhere in that range, by Marshall. He came to the Senior Bowl. He weighed in around 250. That
That's
is, yeah, it's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah.
Going from people had him kind of slotted in as an undersized guy who went to a small school, coming to the Senior Bowl, and expectations, I wouldn't say were low, but they weren't particularly high because of those physical issues. And again, the fact that he went to a small school, and then he comes to the Senior Bowl, weighs in with 30 extra pounds, and probably was the best player on the field over those first 2 days. He's legit. I don't think the Patriots will really have a chance at getting him because you're not going to get him at 4. That's a little bit too rich, and he is not going to make it to 38. My guess is he's around that like 15 to 20 range. Very good player, but probably not someone for the Patriots to get, despite him having an incredible week in Mobile.
Yeah, I definitely don't see them getting him. For him to come in 30 pounds heavier, I would assume he probably's not going to run the 40 at the combine. Just considering he probably doesn't. That 40-yard dash, for some reason, I feel like the combine versus what we're seeing on tape, that's going to tell a lot because this is a draft where people are scouring for talent that's at the top of the draft because, there's a lot of good depth in it. And us being at 4, we're in a very, unique spot just because of now with Cleveland, Myles Garrett's asking to be out of there. So there's no telling who they take there. And then, obviously, if the Titans feel like they want to run back the Will Levis experience, and that could get interesting there because that could leave us at 4 where,
Nobody.
we either ask to trade back because we're looking for one of the offensive tackles that may go in the first round, or you're in the position to take whoever the best player is there. And if it's Hunter's not there and if Abdul Carter's not there, then I would say you have to go with Mason Graham just because they need guys in the trenches on both sides. But they're definitely, the Patriots are in a unique spot where in free agency, we have to get at least a tackle a wide receiver, or some type of defensive lineman because we're not in a position to even give up any picks to even try to, address it later on down the line. So something has to come in free agency that where our draft board can shift a little bit. So it was definitely like I appreciated watching the Senior Bowl. I actually haven't got through watching all of the Shrine Bowl yet. I've been trying, but I've just been moving around a lot. I definitely didn't watch some of it just because I wanted to get an overall view of how these guys was playing in both Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl. But the Senior Bowl definitely produced a very, very, very good game this year, where there's a lot of players that I feel like in some of the later rounds there can't go wrong. It's like, okay, that guy could be a good player coming in. That guy could be a good player coming in because the league is starting to shift. You know what I mean? There's no more of these like the veterans are the young quarterbacks everybody's talking about, and a lot of them aren't even 30 yet. We're talking about the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, and a lot of the booking talent that's coming in. It's still a young league, so it is a time where a lot of these guys can come into the league and carve their name out and be productive pieces on the roster. But I do find wide receiver to be very, very interesting considering, we just took two wide receivers last year, and it's always going to come down to what's going to happen with Jalen Pope.
Yeah, and it's an
Mhm.
interesting comment you made with the league shifting. And what I'm noticing watching these games is the offense is running more zone scheme concepts, which means these guards are pulling to get outside. And for that to happen, to that be successful, you need fast and athletic linemen. And
Mm-hmm.
then you need running backs who can bounce outside or cut inside, right? You need faster linemen, faster running backs. And then on the defensive side, since these running backs are running outside of the tackles, you're needing faster linebackers. You're
Yep.
needing more athletic defensive linemen, right? So the game is definitely getting to the point where teams are starting to draft smaller, more athletic linebackers that can stretch the field more,
Mm-hmm.
and not those big, Vince Wilforks on the defensive line. I will say, before we kind of move on from the Senior Bowl a little bit, I did want to shout out one position group in particular who I was watching, who I think impressed, a position group who actually had 2 touchdowns accounted for throwing, and that is the running backs. And it was fun seeing, these running backs
Was
who threw the ball. And UCF's RJ Harvey was actually a quarterback before he transitioned to running back in college. So that wasn't that new to him. But then you have Oklahoma State's Gordon here throwing a
Mhm.
dime to it's the first touchdown of the
Jaden
game.
Higgins. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Higgins.
yeah, Jaden Higgins. Um, but both of them impressed me. You got Damian Martinez out of Miami, who he left early because he had such a good Senior Bowl. He didn't participate in the game, but he had great practices. And the thing that I noticed the most with these running backs is they're not just a running back, they're great pass protectors. And teams
Mm.
need that sixth man who can step up in the pocket and block a
Mm-hmm.
blitzer off the edge or a Mike coming down in the middle. And these running backs who are going to stay in the league and get drafted and not get paid 1 million 3.5 1 year $3.5 million contracts, they're going to be paid 3 year $25 million contracts, are the ones who can step up and block and do the dirty work.
Yeah, for sure. And considering what we're seeing from Saquon Barkley, after years of saying that the running back position has been devalued, if the Eagles win Sunday, that's obviously going to shift back to maybe we need to go back to the league being hard nosed defenses and running the football. For years of how we did it in New England, obviously, Tom was just in a different stratosphere from anybody else, and right now he still is. But you know, the run game, there was definitely a maturation with the run game considering like I feel like we as the Patriots, I feel like we made the league shift towards these smaller linebackers to try to keep up with the type of running backs we were running out of the backfield, going all the way back to the Kevin Folks, down to the Dion Lewis's and the James Whites. And then when you had that problem of, all right, can these linebackers cover these guys? Then we had Rob Gronkowski. You couldn't cover him. And obviously Aaron Hernandez, for what he was on the field in that time frame, there was a shift in the league. So I feel like, now what we're seeing, teams are trying to keep up with that and keep up with these new age tight ends that aren't more so blocking tight ends. They're the H backs. They can line up in the slot. They're kind of like that chess piece where you can weaponize the offense. But I don't feel like right now there's a lot of tight ends coming in the league that have that cachet right now versus the Travis Kelce that's going out. Yeah, we can look down at Brock Bowers and give me another good young tight end. Hawkinson, he's getting up there.
Yeah, he's kind
Sam
of older now.
Laporta. Sam
There you go.
Laporta's
Laporta,
There he
one.
is. Yeah, Laporta.
The one Arizona Cardinals.
Cade, is it Cade McBeth?
Auden.
Auden. Yeah, Cade Auden, but that's not who I'm thinking of. Why can't
Is
I
it
think of this guy?
McBeth?
McBride.
McBride. Thank you,
McBride.
McBride. Trey
Yeah,
McBride.
there
Thank
we
you,
go.
Trey McBride.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Super Bowl stock, right? If you're talking about Saquon, if they win, right, that's what everyone's going to want to do, right? When Patrick started winning, everyone went to that more athletic type of quarterback, right? Because everyone was trying to, have the Tom Brady, and then now everyone wants the Patrick Mahomes. So Super Bowl stock, and that's what's going to kind of make everything change. But just going back to the Senior Bowl, and this kind of relates with the Patriots, right? Because we're at the 4th pick. We're trying to see if there's a possibility of us, being able to trade down or anything like that. And right, and the biggest reason for someone to trade up is for quarterbacks. And the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl, from what I've heard, it was not a good showing, kind of overall. I kind of wanted to get your guys' opinion on that, where you were there.
Yeah, it's also putting it in perspective. The last year I went, you had Michael Penix, you had Bo Nix, you had Spencer Rattler, you had Sam Hartman, you have all of these guys. I mean, those three alone, Penix, Nix, and Spencer Rattler, were all starters last year out of 32 quarterbacks. And for the Senior Bowl to have 3 starting quarterbacks was something pretty unprecedented. And then this year, they couldn't get Shador. Shador went to the Shrine Bowl, or went to the Shrine Bowl. He didn't participate. Cam Wood doesn't really need an All-Star game to boost his draft stock. And then you had Jackson Dart, who some said at the end, Jordan Schultz reported that some teams are looking at him as a first-round draft pick, and I don't really see how that's possible. I'm not a man to put someone down, especially a player, but he did not really look like a first-round draft pick. But I will say teams this year are going to have to reach on these quarterbacks. Jackson Dart, Riley Leonard, Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord. These guys that teams in past years would probably not be going as high as they would in the draft this year. I will say Drake May was in the quarterback class of last year. I think he's getting drafted first. I don't think there's any doubt. Also, I think if Bo Nix was last year, I think he's getting drafted pretty up there. Like Shador's good, Cam Wood is good, but comparatively, they're not as good as previous years' quarterbacks.
No.
Yeah, this is a rough year to be 4th overall, just with the quarterbacks that are coming in. It's not looking good. Last year would have been awesome. Granted, I mean, we got Drake May, right? If we already had him, it would have been nice to be 4th overall then. But yeah, it's not looking so hot for us to be able to kind of trade out.
Yeah, I was pleased. Like I even said it before the season when he was still at North Carolina. I said, man, I said, I want the Patriots to get that guy. And once Jaden Daniels started picking up steam, I'm like, okay. I'm like, let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's going to drop. Let's go. I'm like, I didn't want Caleb. And if y'all ever watch this, you heard me all here say it. I've never really been high on him as a pro because clearly the college game and the pro game is just so much different. I tell people the biggest difference is the hash marks in college. They have so much more space and windows are more wide open. And Caleb's number one problem is he holds the ball entirely too long. That's why we were able to get those 9 sacks because it wasn't, we beat up on their line, but like they have a stat out there saying Caleb takes the most sacks when he has a pass block win rate. So
That's crazy.
yeah,
I haven't heard that. That's an interesting one.
yeah. Like if you really watch him and just watch how long he holds the ball, it's like yo, this is the league. Like you're just not gonna do
You're
it.
gonna get killed out there.
Yeah, and Drake May and everybody that was saying that, oh, he should have sat, he should have sat. He came in and did something that I wanted to see for years from Mac Jones. Because yeah, we can beat down on the talent all we want to, but when you got a quarterback like Drake May, now we can kind of filter out who's who and who's just obviously bad and can't play. Obviously, Taekwon didn't work. A better quarterback came in. You're supposed to be this vertical threat. You couldn't see the field. Blue T, I think his draft stock fell because of the whole gambling thing. Because if you really looked at him from his freshman year, and then he started having some problems, but I heard it was more of a schematic type of thing. And
Yeah.
obviously with a combination of the attitude, but he didn't like the way that I think it was Brian Kelly, how he came in running the offense, how he wanted to utilize him more as a slot. So obviously we got him in the 7th round. I think he'll be a good number 2, keeping him. Obviously, Pop Douglas, we got to keep him on the roster.
Yeah, I liked Woody a lot. I thought he had a great year.
Yeah, Polk, Baker, I feel like, and it's sad to say, but you owe it to them and you owe it to the organization to at least give them a fair chance this year, because if you're saying that last year was so bad that obviously, and I thought Gerard Mayo should have went. I never thought they even should have went there. But okay, you admitted that wrong, but we never got down to the draft. Like we did just draft 2 wide receivers, and one of them we like rarely even saw last year, and the other one had 12 catches for 87 yards on the entire year. And it's just like, as a Patriots fan, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing every early round receiver we pick. This is what happens, that none of them has even eclipsed 1,000 yards in their career, going all the way back to 2002.
Yeah, they
Crazy.
need a game changer, and they've needed one for so long. They haven't. I think you can make the argument that they haven't had a true number 1 since the 1 week event of Antonio Brown.
I think
Which
Josh
is
Gordon fit that when he was there.
sure. Yeah,
When
that
he was
was
looking, he wasn't fucking up. He was
Yeah, that's the thing. He wasn't
yeah.
consistent enough, right?
But he was that
else.
Antonio. Again, it's 1 week of Antonio Brown, so that this is also just a little bit like wacky to
Yeah.
say in general. But
Mm.
kind of after Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon, that's kind of when he also hit his little fall off. I think they were moved in the same season, if I'm not mistaken there. So
Mhm. Yep.
that whether it's 1 week of Antonio Brown or the next 5 weeks after that of Josh Gordon, the Patriots haven't had a true number 1 receiver for basically 5 years.
Yep.
And that's not something you can get away with in the modern day NFL. And it's not that they haven't tried to fix it. They've tried to make N'Keal Harry work. They've tried to make Tyquan Thornton work. They've tried to make Jalen Polk work, Javon Baker, all of them.
Aaron
It's
Dotson, going
yeah,
back to him.
yeah. I mean, there's countless examples, right?
Zach, who was the number 1? Not to cut you off, but who is the number 1 receiver? You counting Edelman as the number 1?
Well,
Like
he's talking about in
he
the
wasn't like a
latter year.
true number 1 though.
Because
In his
they
last
haven't had
2
a number
years.
1 since Moss, I believe. I mean, if we're
Sure.
talking someone matching up, if I'm categorizing a number 1 as a Jamar Chase, as a CeeDee Lamb, even
Yeah.
as a Nico Collins or a Mike Evans, or I
Yeah.
could go on and on, right? Looking at Julian Edelman, he was a fantastic receiver for the Patriots,
Oh,
who put up receptions close to 90 a year. But he was not a number 1 receiver for the Patriots in my eyes. He might have had his 2016 season and his 2019 season. I think I'm almost positive were the only 2 seasons he had over 1,000 yards. I'm talking about a receiver who can go in there and have 1,300 yards, 120 receptions in a season, and they haven't had someone like that since Randy Moss.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Edelman also had it in 2013, but I'd
He
say
did?
I mean yeah, barely. He had like 1,056.
Okay.
I just looked it up.
Okay.
Doesn't
His
matter.
playoffs
Still
numbers,
point.
though, it's
Yeah,
Edelman's in the
That's what I mean.
playoffs.
No. He was a
yeah.
fantastic receiver. Don't get me wrong. He was Brady's go-to guy. I mean, when that ball was thrown on him at 3rd and 12, you knew it was going to be a catch. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the Patriots have not had a true Jamar
Yeah,
Chase
Yeah, that
leverage wide
prototype.
receiver
But
since Randy
would
Moss.
you? And this is like a question. I'm not saying that I necessarily believe this, but would you categorize Gronk as that? And having Gronk, is that a true
yeah,
number one receiver? Because
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if the volume was necessarily there, but he's a playmaker. It's
Oh, he
Gronk.
shifted
Like,
the game. He
yeah,
shifted the game like
yeah,
he shifted the game more than even Travis Kelsey himself does. Like
oh
Rob
yeah,
Gronkowski was just because you thought that he wasn't fast. Like I remember, who was it from Seattle? KJ Wright. Remember, I used to always see him split up out wide with tight ends, and he said something before the Super Bowl, like, "Yeah, well, Gronk's not going to do that." And then Gronk beat him on the fade route to the back of the end zone. That's when I really realized I'm like, oh, okay. I obviously already seen the dominance, but just seeing him beat Seattle's fastest linebacker, most athletic, he just torched him in coverage.
yeah,
Well, that's what it's just like Rob Gronkowski was just whether it was blocking, because you could have made the argument that he could have been a left tackle as well, or some type of tackle, or some type of offensive lineman. So from blocking to splitting out, catching passes in the biggest moments of the game when he was healthy, yeah, you could consider him. He was a
yeah,
dominant, like just dominant weapon
yeah.
all over
So
the field.
speaking of needing receivers, though, quick question in the chat: would you guys trade for Cooper Cup? And I'll start it off just really quick. This is a little bit of a cop out answer, but it entirely depends on the trade compensation.
Mhm.
What will the Patriots have to give up if they do try to trade for Cooper Cup? Um, Also, would Cooper Cup want to come to the Patriots? I think the Rams are going to do right by him. They already are trading him when he has said that he doesn't want to be traded. They obviously, as an organization, have tons of respect for him, Super Bowl MVP, Triple Crown winner, etc., etc. So that's a guy who he'll be able to go where he wants, assuming that the team that he wants to go to also wants him. But it's the trade compensation. It's that if Cup wants to come here, and it's also, in my opinion, how much of his cap hit are the Rams willing to eat? And I know that the Patriots have loads and loads and loads of cap space. I know they're by far first in the NFL, but that doesn't mean you can just get all willy nilly with your money. And if the difference between if getting Cooper Cup stops you from getting, let's say, T. Higgins, like maybe they don't want to have $50 million invested into their wide receiver room with an aging Cooper Cup and a potentially injury prone T. Higgins. Like that's understandable. But if if Cup's cap hit is about half of what it's supposed to be, and there's a lot less risk there, then I don't see why not, assuming the trade compensation is pretty minimal, which I would expect it to be. I would say it's probably going to be a fourth or a fifth.
Mm.
Like
I
I don't think it'll be that much. He's going into, I think, his age 32 season. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in the past couple seasons. I don't think that the trade compensation will be too extreme for Cooper Cup.
I think if I'm Cooper Cup, two things. One, I think it's going to cost a third or fourth rounder. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's up to a fifth. I personally think he's going to go for a little more just because of how valuable that veteran wide receiver could be. I can name 5 teams right now if I'm Cooper Cup who I would want to go to before the Patriots.
Hmm.
On the
You
top
could
of my
probably name
list,
20.
Yeah.
I mean, on the top of my list. Look, if I'm Cooper Cup, sure, Drake Mays, the quarterback, New England's historic. They have the money. You will get overpaid. All of that. But if I'm Cooper Cup, I want to win another championship. And
Yep.
and I know the Patriots are not going to win a championship in 2 years. And by the time I'm 33 or 34, I don't know if I'm going to still be playing the game. Right?
Right.
I'm trying to think like Cooper Cup. So why in the world would I go to an organization who won 4 games this year, 5 games 4 games the previous year, um, instead of just going to somewhere like Washington, where they have the quarterback in Jaden Daniels, just like Drake May. You have Terry McLaurin, right? And if I'm him too, Terry McLaurin's going to be the number one guy, right? So that number one cornerback, that number one defensive back, he's going to be on Terry. The attention's going to be over there. So that frees up me to have more receptions, more yards, more touchdowns, right? So I think he's gonna either end up going to a team like the Commanders or even like the Texans, who they have Stephon Diggs, but they just got the Rams offensive
Can't hear you.
Yeah, Ben, you're
Yeah.
no, we're losing you. I'll take over for a second.
Sorry about it,
There we
guys.
go. Go ahead.
Nice.
Bluetooth problems. Sorry, my family's going out in the car and my phone connected. But either way, I would go to a team. I'll wrap this up. I would go to a team like the Texans, even besides the Commanders, because they just got Nick Caley, who is a Rams, obviously the Rams pass game coordinator over there, and reunite with him, and then have Tank Dell and CJ Stroud. So there would be a few teams before I would go to the Patriots.
If I'm the Patriots, I wouldn't do it just because what's the game? Like you said, like, all right, are we winning the championship in the next 2 years? And are we willing to pay Cooper Cup the money that he's gonna want? Because like you say, he's coming from a place where he didn't seen pretty much good success to now he's gonna have to come basically help rebuild something, and we don't know how much he has left in the tank because I think he's missed at least 5 games over each of the last 3 seasons. I think they said it was something like 12, 9 and 12, or 9, 12 and 12, something like that. The amount of games he's been missing. So from the Patriots, I continue to ride this process out of we got to build through the draft and continue to get those attractive pieces like the Drake Mays and whoever we can get at 4 to get guys to want to come here, because Washington just showed, like you said, they just showed something where, all right, that team that has maybe the second or third amount money to spend, they were just in the NFC Championship last year. So
Yep.
that's going to be hard for a bidding war as well. So we definitely have to have a lot of homegrown talent now that this is no longer the Brady and Belichick era, where we can kind of talk guys in on a low price to come in and things like that, because Tom only made a certain amount of money, and obviously you wasn't about to come to the Patriots and make more money than Tom. So, it's just like we're definitely in that age where now this front office, they're on notice. Even, Vrabel brought in some guys and things like that. I just hope a power struggle doesn't ensue, but they haven't said much, and I feel like we deserve at least an explanation about last year's draft. I'm sorry, because it's like we're talking about all the same things we need this year. It's everything they took a swing on last year in the first 4 rounds.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The only thing that concerns me with trying to build through the draft with receivers is like we were just talking about having the true number one receiver. With our history, I don't really think we can draft a top tier receiver like that.
Yep.
We never have, and we were talking about Randy Moss. We got him through a trade, right? I have no faith in being able to pick someone through the draft that's in that position. So with like Cooper Kupp, if they're looking for a fourth, but we have to take all the cap hit, I'd be a little bit more reluctant. But if we can offer like a third and they take a ton off, like I'd be okay with that, just because like I don't think there's a possibility of us drafting someone that's like in that prototypical wide receiver one that we can draft. I just there's the last decade we just haven't been able to.
They skip over the obvious guys like the N'Keal
Right.
Harry pick. Like I was even thinking right there at 32. I'm not gonna lie, I'm in here screaming Metcalf. Because I'm like, yeah, okay, that's Metcalf right there. Like, because I didn't think he was even gonna fall there. It's N'Keal Harry. Then I go look, and the first thing I heard him say is, well, he doesn't create much separation. Red flag right there, because it's like if you don't create much separation in college, you're gonna have a hard time in the pros. Because to be that outside X receiver, you have to understand your routes and know how to get open yourself. Everything's on you. Whether the Z and the slot and everybody else, they get the motion and move around. They have a whole they have a whole different set of routes that they can run. But when you're that X, you gotta be that guy. Like you gotta be able to create separation. And the guys that they seem like they've been bringing in to play that position hasn't been it. And Jalen Pope, I wonder where he fits at in Josh McDaniel's system. They're like, oh, well, he's supposed to be the Jacoby Myers replacement. I did have Jacoby Myers as his comp, but now that I look at it, Jacoby Myers can separate. Jalen Pope, his best plays are him trying to fight through contact to make the catch. He has great hand-eye coordination. I won't take that away from him. But as far as separating and really understanding the routes, I don't see it. And I feel like he's going to have a hard time in Josh McDaniel's system. I see Baker. Honestly, I still got faith in him. I feel like he might be a diamond in the rough. I just got to see him this year. And that's why I said if last year was so bad with that coaching staff, even Jalen Polk himself, he deserves at least another chance. Now that you're saying that we have competent coaching in place, and like I said, we understand who our quarterback is and what he is. So it's easier now to see that where the receiver talent is versus, well, Mac Jones was so bad that it was like, like Mac Jones was terrible. So it was hard to kind of decipher whose fault it was. But now with Drake May there, it's definitely
it made things a lot more obvious of who shouldn't be on the team, who is. But yeah, like you're saying, like Jalen Polk, was it the 49ers game where it was down the sideline? He made that catch, but he was like surrounded and it was out of bounds. But like he had no separation, and especially with like Josh McDaniels, like you're saying, like Edelman, Amendola, Chris Hogan, like those guys are separators and they flourish in his system. So I think he's gonna have a rough time. But Javon Baker has, like all last year, I was saying there's no way Javon Baker's bad enough to not see the field when Jalen Polk is out there to play. Right. Javon Baker has to get more playing time. Jalen Polk, like if he never plays again, like I'm fine. Like he's shown me enough. But Javon Baker, I think he deserves a shot because Jalen Polk, yeah. I know you want him to have another opportunity, but he's so ass. He's statistically the worst receiver in football. Like I've seen enough. I've seen enough.
I want to put out there really fast. Who is the fourth best player the Patriots have drafted that's still at the team? So they have Keon White, they have Christian Gonzalez, they have Drake May. Who would you have? And I'll add Christian Baltimore. Who would you add as that fifth player? Off the top of my head, I can't really
Anthony
name.
Jennings.
On Wanu.
Yeah.
But isn't that your problem right there? Like Anthony Jennings, like sure, Owenu just got paid a lot, but didn't really perform like he just got paid a lot last year. And maybe that's with the people surrounding him on the line were below average, but I mean, That is your problem. You have failed. You have failed. Like if this was a test, your drafts would have failed in the last 5, 6 years.
I
And
think
this is dating back all the way to when Brady was still here in 2019 and 2018. You have not produced talent. If you look, Fox Sports put out a graphic earlier today with the top Chiefs players and the top Eagles players and where they came from. And there was 5 combined players on the offensive side of the football between the Chiefs and the Eagles who were not drafted by that team.
That's
And
crazy.
sure, you have Saquon Barkley,
Mm.
you have Beckham, the offensive lineman. You have Joe
Tooney.
Thune. Yeah, exactly. You have him. But man, if you are looking like the best teams draft their players and grow their players, and when you do that, you also don't have to pay. You pay them the bare minimum for 4 years. So you have to learn how to draft right, and it starts in the draft. And that's just my 2 cents.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. And I feel like with Owenu, with him struggling last year, I feel like that was because of a scheme change,
I
running
agree.
going into Alex Van Pelt with the West Coast zone run. Owenu, you can already tell for a tackle he's undersized. I can tell you that. And with him, he's more of a gap based type of blocker in the run. He's never been much like that good of a pass protector. But as you can see with Josh McDaniels, they had a great play action game, and Josh McDaniels got a plethora of plays that he can just run through, and obviously can hide some of those weaknesses. Which actually, I'm glad that you brought Winu up to catch you before you go with them bringing Dante Scarnecchia back in, do you think that they're looking at it as well? We can try to succeed with the talent that we have on the O line here and address it again in the later rounds because McDaniels has had success and they've had success with those later round picks, like the Trent Browns, um, Michael Wynn, who's even what is he like a fifth, sixth round pick?
6th round, I think. Yeah.
David Andrews is undrafted. Cole Strange, I honestly think he's a lot better than what people try to give him credit for. Because around the time when he got hurt, I think Pro Football Focus, he was like somewhere in the top 10 for guards in the league. So I feel
Yeah,
like
he
Cole
had
Strange,
he had a pretty solid season in his last full season. Like
yeah,
at least a good end to the year. His beginning was a little bit rougher. But going to the Scarnecchia thing a little bit, Scarnecchia actually, I know it was reported that he'd be coming back at least for some consulting role or
right.
um Scarnecchia himself said today that that's not the case. So will he maybe be around the facilities every once in a while? I'm sure he'll at least visit, but I don't think he'll have any
Maybe. I don't
sort
know.
of.
When he said, has he been around? He said, no, I've never been around in the last 4 years. So
Oh,
I don't
then
even
I
know
mean
that
I
part.
didn't see that part, so yeah, maybe not. But I mean I know at least I'm not as sure about like last year, but I know at the very least 2 years ago, after Ivan Fears had retired, he was still at practices pretty often, just kind of hanging out. And Scarnecchia is also still in the area. I'd spoken with BC's Ozzie Trapillo at the Senior Bowl, offensive tackle for the Boston College Eagles, and he said that he's been working with Dante Scarnecchia. So Scarnecchia not coming back to New England. Again, I know that it was originally reported that he would be, at least in some sort of capacity, but it's seemingly not the case at this moment.
Okay. All right. Yeah. uh, We'll see what happens with them because it just seems like as of late, Kraft, I just hope he doesn't end up like Jerry Jones, man. Because he's starting to show some signs. He's definitely starting to show some signs. Like just the whole Gerard Mayo debacle. I'm a big Bill guy anyway. Like I love Bill to death, but I thought if you were gonna move on, you should have just moved completely on. Because now it's like we're going back to even though Vrabel's not off of Bill's coaching tree,
Yeah.
And that's why Brendan and I actually agree with you sometimes when you're like, oh, I don't like the whole get the band back together thing. But I feel like Josh McDaniels is the most competent for the offensive coordinator job. But it's like you guys did all of that and shifted all of that around to make it where I guess the greatest coach in the history of the modern game was the problem. But you kept the front office. You seen that the coach that you hired, it was just a disaster because we all seen that it was going to be a disaster. To go back to this hard old school type of coaching, and despite what you want to think about Vrabel, these are Bill's guys. But you have yet to address the guys that was helping making the draft picks because all right, you can say, yeah, Bill wasn't drafting good, but coaching, we the Patriots lost not this past year, but the year before that. They lost 8 one-score games. So that goes to show you that, yeah, man, Mac Jones was helping other teams win. All the pick sixes and things that he was doing, he was literally giving out points. So it's just like you did this whole dance around to get the most competent coach that was in there that we've seen by far, not taking anything away from Vrabel, to go down to Mayo. You elevated the guys that was helping him make these picks. And now we're back to the same culture that just last year you guys were basically trying to scrub the building of.
Yeah, Elliot Wolf and Matt Grove scare the hell out of me. Just keeping them. I wasn't the biggest fan of keeping them. I would have rather kept Gerard than them, to be honest, just because the history of the draft for so many years. Gerard stunk, but I think Elliot Wolf and Matt Grove are just a cancer in the facility, and they've just been there for way too long, and there just clearly hasn't been enough success with drafting.
Let's not forget the Ronnie Perkins pick, too, in 2021. Because he said Matt Grove actually ran that draft. We got Baltimore. And, yeah, that's about it. Baltimore. Who went in the third?
Well, it's Perkins in the third. Let me pull it up.
I think. Oh yeah,
isn't that
Ramondre
also
went
like
in the fourth. It was
yeah.
Ramondre and I think
didn't they get
a linebacker in the third, maybe me in the fourth?
So did they get McGrone late in that
Yeah,
draft?
McGrone.
Yeah, McGrone in the fifth, Bledsoe in the sixth, Will Sherman in the sixth, Trey Nixon in the seventh.
Yeah,
But like, I mean, look, Mac Jones, I think, was out of Matt Grove's hands a little bit. And then he got Christian Barmore and he got Ramondre Stevenson. Like, that's I don't think you can really complain about that. Honestly, in my opinion, you get I know Stevenson had a little bit of a down year this season, but you get a franchise running back in the fourth round, and you get an all-pro caliber.
I don't think he's a
for the Patriots. For the Patriots, he's been a franchise guy. I'm not. That doesn't mean he's
because the Patriots have been so bad.
Yeah, but still, he's their franchise guy. He's their franchise guy.
Though he's been fumbling since college. That's always been his but
look,
I like
Zach, I appreciate where you're coming from, but I don't think the Patriots have drafted more than 3 quality guys in the last 5 years.
But I'm a lot higher on this year's draft class. This might sound a little bit like dumb at first, but bear with me. I'm higher on this year's draft class than I think most people are. We all know what Drake May is. And whether you want to call that the obvious pick or not, like fair enough, there was the option to trade back, right? They decided not to. Drake May was the pretty clear choice, but still someone had to make that choice. They did it. Cool, good. Polk, in training camp, he was stick with me, Ben. In training camp, Polk was the Patriots' best receiver by far. Jalen Polk is not as bad as what he showed this year. That is not the front office's fault that they picked a guy who immediately looks like he can be the Pats wide receiver 1, and then he falls off a cliff because the coaching is so bad.
So whose fault is it?
The coaching. They didn't develop him.
That McConkey pick, it looks worse.
Yeah, no, look, fair enough. Like that I get, right? But I also don't think Ladd McConkey is going to be, or would have been Ladd McConkey if he were in New England. Would he have been better than Polk? Sure, fair enough. But Jalen Polk is not as bad as what he's shown. You don't get worse throughout the year without awful coaching. He started off in training camp, everyone thought he was going to be the guy for the Patriots because that's what he looked like. And then he fell off a cliff because the coaching was not helping him.
I give you that one. That's why I said I think they owe it to him and Baker to give him another opportunity now that there's a new OC in there.
Yeah. So then going past that again, like Caden Wallace, that's tough. He was injured all year.
You can say this about every single pick for the last 10 years. You can try to spin it, and it was a good pick. I mean, I'm hearing you out. I'm trying, and I'm gonna let you finish. I am gonna let you finish. I know you're only on the third pick, but like in my mind, really, really fast. Just going up to the points you just said. Drake May, a 5-year-old, could have made that pick. Jalen Polk, I can debunk the argument by just saying Ladd McConkey. And then Caden Wallace, he was injured. And you just go one more. Layden Robinson, he was drafted in the 4th round. Do you know how valuable a 4th round pick is? And to spend it on back-to-back offensive linemen, Layden Robinson, sure, he might pan out. But you do not draft a guard with your 4th overall pick or your 4th round pick when you have other pressing needs available, like a tackle or defense, or I can name 10 other positions that would have been more valuable than the 4th. Right, I'll let you finish. I just wanted to get that off.
They drafted 2 guards in the 4th round the year before too. Was it Mafe and City? So
Yep.
But again, that's what they felt they needed. That's what they felt they needed.
So how do you need a position back-to-back years? That's why this draft has been so bad, because you keep drafting the same position guys that don't pan out. Jake Andrews was a 4th round pick in 2023.
Elliot Wolf wasn't the one making the picks that year. That was Bill Belichick. That was Bill Belichick.
Okay, but all of them collaborate on these picks, sure. But all of these guys are collaborating. I'll let you finish.
But at the end of the day, it was Bill Belichick.
I will let you finish.
I think when you go back through it, May, if you want to give Wolf that, or if you don't want to give Wolf that, I understand both ways. Again, it was the pretty obvious pick, but like I still think that trading back was on the table, and I give him credit at least to an extent for not doing that. Polk, has he panned out? No, we know that, right? But it's still, he's going into his second year. We're writing off a guy who's going into his second year who looked solid at first, looked like he could have been the guy, and then coaching screwed him, and it all went downhill from there. I don't think that was solely a bad pick. I think that has more to do with coaching than it does about Elliot Wolf being a bad GM. Caden Wallace, again, I think he looked good in his limited time, so I'm just going to skip over that because you can't predict an injury like that from a guy who didn't have an injury history. I don't believe he did, at least. Layden Robinson, for a 4th rounder, looked pretty good for when he played. No complaints there for me.
Okay.
Ben, you can scoff all you want, but what did
Layden Robinson's pretty decent.
You can't before you finish really quick, you just said you can't write off someone after 1 year. You're writing on Drake May. You're doing the same for Drake May. Sure, Drake May was a fantastic quarterback. I'm giving you that. I'm agreeing with you. But he didn't even have a full season. So
all right, well then, but if this is the argument we're gonna have, then we just won't talk about the draft at all for 3 more years, and then we can come back and look at this draft class.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you are making these arguments. Well, we have to talk about what we are given. We talk about the product on the field, and you explained it. I just can't see in the right mind how you think Jalen Polk deserves to be categorized as a good draft pick. Now,
I'm not saying it's a good draft pick. I'm saying it's not a bad draft pick yet. I'm not saying that
it's not okay, fine.
And
I agree
I'm also
you.
not saying I love this draft class. That's not what I'm saying.
You said you're higher on it than other people.
Yes. You know what other people are saying? Elliot Wolf needs to be fired because of this draft class.
No, that's okay.
Yes.
Yes. Sure. User 569 Pats fan lover on Twitter is saying Elliot Wolf should be fired. But the majority of people are looking at the production. Caden Wallace was giving up sack after sack, pressure after pressure, quarterback hit after quarterback hit. And again, it is tough to be the Patriots when you have an offensive line that is changing every single game. It's tough to communicate. On the offensive line, the number one thing you have to do is communicate with each other. And when it's changing, it's hard to communicate. Completely understand that. But Zach, I just don't see how you can think that. I mean, they drafted like 6 offensive linemen in the last 2 years. How many have panned out?
One with Owenu.
I mean, that is just what I'm saying. I get it was Bill
So,
Belichick's fault too.
I'm
But
higher on Cole Strange than a lot of people. I think Cole Strange is
as a
gonna.
first round pick, though,
That
I
again
mean,
wasn't Elliot Wolf. That's Bill
yeah. I
Belichick.
mean,
I don't know why we're talking about all these draft picks from a guy that's not with the organization still. That's Bill Belichick.
yeah. People, but look, people do the Cole Strange thing. I did look into it. A lot of people didn't have him as high, but when you listen to the reasoning of why they did it, because he probably was going to go somewhere in the mid second, actually. But you got Sean McVay and everybody that was trying to be funny about it. But if you actually kind of look at a lot of the guys that went after him in the first round, a lot of them didn't pan out neither. So it's like I don't think, like I said, I don't think that he's a bad prospect. It's just the way Bill built that line. A lot of those guys are run blockers. So Caden Wallace, and I get Zach, I get completely what you're saying, and that's why I said, just out of all fairness to the players, yes, you do have to run it back with them because they were drafted. And if we're saying that the front office wasn't the problem, and I'm saying this, if we're going with this avenue, that the front office did their job and coaching was just so bad, then yes, you have to give the players a second chance with competent coaching that we feel like has come into the door to see if this talent rises up to the level. Now, if Jalen Pope looks anywhere near, which I don't feel like he can, which it shouldn't even be possible to look anywhere near what it looked like last year.
Yeah.
I feel like under McDaniels, if you start seeing the budding and he gives you at least 650 yards or more this year, that is a positive sign to me, and I can live with that. You feel me? As long as whether it's T. Higgins that we bypass, we need an outside X. Whether you go get Jaden Higgins, I don't think Tack McMillan we're going to get our hands on him, but there's definitely some other outside X options for them to get. Maybe if even Trey Harris falls in the draft, maybe to the second round, you can go after him. But that I feel like that's what the Patriots need on a couple of different sides of the ball. They need a wide receiver that's an alpha that can come in and let these other guys fall into what their true roles are. Let Kayshon Boutte fall into the true number 2 role. Let Demario Douglas fall into that true number 3 role. And whoever that number 1 guy is, he demands that type of attention. And that I feel like that's what it should be on the defensive line too. Christian Barmore, I feel like, was getting there, but obviously, with the blood clots, I actually really, really, really like Anthony Jennings. He holds it down.
He's good.
So, I feel like with this new coaching staff, there'll be, with the right draft picks, I feel like guys will fall into place and fall into their role, and I feel like we'll get better eventually.
Yeah, again, I think when you draft a guy, there's a ceiling and there's a floor, and Jalen Polk managed to be below his floor. Again, for me, that's a coaching thing. And I'm not saying that Jalen Polk next year is going to be an 1,000-yard receiver. For all I know, he may repeat what he did last year, and if that's the case, then I'm willing to go out and say, yeah, that was on Elliot Wolf, that was on Matt Groh, that was on whoever is making that pick. But as it stands today, because of what we were talking about, I don't think that you can say, or not you specifically, but just fans in general can make a fully rational argument behind firing Elliot Wolf besides get Vrabel the guy that he wants, which if that's the case, then sure, fair enough.
Yeah, if he can mold to what Vrabel wants, then fine, right? That's the big thing is making sure that everyone's on the same page. which, I mean, it seems like it's pretty easy, right? Everyone knows the offensive line is the biggest need, right? They're, being in the trenches. So I can't imagine that they're going to be butting heads on that. Especially where there's like T. Higgins out there, which we can easily get outside the draft. But draft-wise, the offensive line just seems to be kind of the glaring need, and I don't see that being an issue between Elliott Wolf and Vrabel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, with that, guys, I just want to say thank you. This was our first collab together, Pats Nation Nightly, with these wonderful people over at the other side of BSEN, Boston Sports Entertainment Network. And with that, where can everyone find you guys?
You can find me on Twitter at Dog Nation. I'm not on YouTube as much, honestly. I might put up a Madden video or NCAA video of me playing, but mainly right now on Twitter. My name's the same on all platforms, even on TikTok. I got a few things up there, but mainly you can find me right now on Twitter. And it was definitely great having you guys as well. I look forward to doing this again. Like, it was,
Sure.
it's definitely great.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and same. Everything's on the bottom that I'm on, right? Twitter. We have the Twitter for the podcast itself, but everything's on the bottom of the screen. But yeah, it was awesome, kind of talking to you guys. We'll have to have you on again. Maybe we'll come on to your show.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, thank you guys so much. Until next time, signing off.
See you
Have
guys.
a good one.
Nice to talk to you guys.
We're on to Cincinnati. It's nothing about the past, nothing about the future. It's right now we're preparing for Cincinnati.
Okay, do you feel like the talent you have here is good?
We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
What is your responsibility?
I'm just asking, do you think you've done enough to help Tom Brady?
We're getting ready for Cincinnati.